Nice. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul. I see you. All right, John. Finish. Coach Carl.
Great job, guys.
Hey there, it's Coach Curl here, and welcome to episode 220 of the Today's Leader podcast. We've had such a run of amazing guests. It's been a real honor for me to interview some of these inspirational leaders that have been on the show. And just between me and you, the podcast lineup continues well into the future. I've had some amazing conversations with some amazing people right around the world, and it's been part of what I look forward to now each and every week, speaking with leaders right around the world. I'm loving the insights. I'm loving the advice that our guests have been offering willingly. And I'm hoping that you do as well. And I think looking at our podcast stats, that is certainly the case. Today, I bring you a chat with Matt Zinman. Now, it was an energetic conversation. It was a little bit lighthearted at times, but Matt really nails his purpose and his message. A little bit about Matt. He's a personal development trainer whose varied his experiences as an entrepreneur and athlete, a single parent, caretaker, consultant, and non-profit founder drives him to be a difference maker and positively impact as many people as possible. Now, in addition to these insights around self-discovery, relationships, heightening awareness, Matt is also the CEO of the Intern Institute, which he established in 2005, which bridges a much-needed gap between education and employment for students, veterans, businesses, non-profits, and communities. So it's a really worthwhile institute, and it's something that's absolutely making a difference. Now, we speak about Matt's book, Z-Isms. We talk about his upcoming podcast called Insights to Live By. And amongst many other things, we talk about the filters in which we perceive the world. So it's my pleasure, after a word from our sponsor, to bring you my conversation with Matt Zinman.
The Coach Curl podcast is brought to you by Think Grow Business, the home of the Think Grow Business Mastermind. If you're serious about growing your business, get serious and join a mastermind group today. Find out more at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au.
It's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast. I've got Matt Zinman, the author of Z-Isms, Insights to Live By. Welcome to the podcast, Matt.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Tony. I know the whole thing was Z-Isms, and it's an American thing. We can say Z for your audience if you prefer. It's all the same to me.
I think it rolls better as Z-ism, so I think
Really?
I'll stick with that.
All right,
So,
I'll go with that.
It's
Thank
almost
you.
like it's got that almost spiritual feeling about it, Matt. So tell me the Matt
Perfect.
Zinman story.
Oh, wow. I'm 53, so where do you want to start? No, look, I'm essentially on my third career now in a way with the book. I live near Philadelphia. I've been here my whole life, Eastern U.S., and I went to Temple University, if anyone on your side of the planet has heard of it. I'm an ice hockey player, so I've done that since I was very young and played through college, still play to this day. And I went into the field of marketing and communication, so advertising, branding, public relations, opened my own company in 2002. At the same time, that intersected with me becoming a single dad. So needing that flexibility, and half the time I'm with my son, and then the other I'm running a business. That's how it's been. He's 19 now. He was 2 at the time, so that's been quite the road. And then in 2005 and 2007 area, I ventured into the world of internship apprenticeships, work-based learning, and founded a nonprofit called the Intern Institute. Again, covering whether you call them apprenticeships or work study or by any other name, mainly working with employers, solopreneurs, up to maybe companies to about 250 in size, the smaller side of that, to help them set up these programs and for mentoring so that they do it right, so that those opportunities sustain. So I continue to do that, but have shifted into, as mentioned, the writing of the book this past year. and I'm letting things unfold there. I'm having a blast, having conversations, and I really appreciate you having me on.
So what was so you specialized in this Insights to Live By, which is predominantly in and around the mindsets, the concept of mindset. So what compelled you to dive into that?
Well, I'd say that I've been wanting to write the book for at least 10 or 15 years based on a number of things, concepts, like at the foundation of the book is earned confidence. We can come back to there. There's a chapter on Be Aware of Spiders, which talks about manipulators and things in relationships in life. Yeah. And then things that speak to my entrepreneurial experience and get into achieving, defining your why, achieving that through self-belief, something called inevitability. And I just decided last year, like with my son going off to college, I was at that inflection point. What now? What would I regret not doing? And the book really came to the surface, and I decided just to get into action with it to see what I really had and whether it was worth, to keep going and finish it. So, and now I'm on the other side and letting things continue to unfold. And Insights to Live By is really what a Z-ism is. It's meant to be those pearls of wisdom that people have. It's not about me as much as it's, the affinity for that letter. As much as, we've all been through the things we've been through. We have these guiding principles and, credos or mantras. The book is the book, right? However, I might say that 6 times. It's not quips and, quotes and things. But it definitely incorporates those life lessons. And what's unfolding for me now post book is I've decided to start my own podcast called Insights to Live By, not just for solo shows, but I'm going to have guests on and speak to them about, what are their guiding principles and what's at the root of those.
Excellent. So how do you use what you've created with Insights to Live By Z-Isms? How do you use that with clients?
Well, I'm less of a coach in the sense that I'm really focused on mass impact, which is what really led me to the podcast. I didn't necessarily write the book for business development as much as I really felt I wanted to get it out there. And I set in some of the interviews I've done over the past number of months, I hear myself saying, I want to positively impact as many people as possible. And it just wasn't definitive enough for me. And so it's just in recent weeks, I have set, more of an objective, do what by when. And that is to personally enrich the lives of at least 100 million people by 2025. Yeah. So, with Insights to Live By at the root, I don't have any misgivings that many people will be listening to my podcast, as many years as I may be doing it. But I do have in mind to get into inspirational speaking, and I couldn't know the first thing about being on a TED Talk stage, but if that's the goal, then I have some things to figure out. As far as if I look to the heart of the book, which is about this really at chapter 1 is called Earned Confidence. What we're talking about, for you, Tony, for anybody, you've been through all the things you have in your life, and we're survivors. I mean, we've made it through. We're still here. We're still standing. And as obvious as that sounds, it's meant to be a grounding reminder that you don't need to worry. You don't need to be anxious or stress about things that are not 100% certain to happen, because you can just deal with the real, because you've always, made it through everything before. You're going to make it through what you're going through now, even if you don't have the answers, and you'll make it through whatever comes your way. So it's just it's that logic, that kind of defeats worry on one hand. And then, what else is dragging you down? Is it regret? Are you somebody who makes assumptions? Do you keep what I would call a scorecard, in a relationship, whether that's a professional relationship or in a personal relationship? Are you holding grudges, or that's not good for you. Why would you do that? But so many people do. So all of it really comes back to grounding in the present, gratitude, joy of life, through enrichment by, being in the moment, and ultimately at the heart of it all about kindness. And when you think of that, it's like, well, people think of kindness, it's about toward others. More specifically, we're talking about kindness toward yourself.
Yeah, excellent. So that's in the earn confidence sort of area, and it's I finish off each and every one of my podcasts with a really similar sort of a saying: "Where you are standing stronger, braver, and wiser." And really, it's about the skill set that's got you through each and every day up until this particular point. So I can certainly resonate with that. Now, you talk about a couple of other filters in the book. Can you just walk me through those?
Right. Yeah. I mean, when we talk about the filters, as you mentioned, where it's really how we perceive the world around us. And so for everything just mentioned, it's, well, are you in the present, or are you caught up in worry, or are you caught up in regret? So that's a framework for how am I experiencing day to day, really minute to minute life. Well, the other certainly is mood health. Yeah. And, that's something that is very close to me and things I've experienced in my family and for myself. I've had to contend with depression since my teens. I actively keep myself healthy to stay out of that quicksand, as it were. But, at any given time, I think people understand, some level of what it's like to feel down. And how is your mood on that sunny, bright day versus, the doldrums? That alone could really impact how you're perceiving the world around you. And then there's perception itself. And, on any minute by minute basis, we interpret everything that's going on, all these different moving parts that we assume are the truth, but it really just is still an interpretation. Yeah. And recognizing that and how we have to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, such as if we're making assumptions about, wow, I really sounded dumb when I said that to Tony on that interview. I'm just beat myself up now, but maybe he thought it was awesome, right? That would be an example, and give others the benefit of the doubt. So being mindful of these different filters, rooting in earned confidence, and back to that, why be anything less than kind to yourself? Yeah. And if I could just stick with that for a minute, because I've been thinking about this a lot. Certainly, I mean, the book's a few months out now, and we get to talk about it, and things expand, and this is just one of those things that when we look at areas of like self-esteem or self-belief, self-love, these self-belief less so maybe, but it's really less palpable. It's like, how do you get your arms around that? It's almost conceptual. Like, how do I love myself? But if you go back to kindness as that barometer of any given circumstance, are you being kind to yourself or you are not? It's one or the other. So it really creates that grounding principle to work toward that from a personal development standpoint. And that's why I wanted to hit it really hard, because it is it is that tangibility that matters. Excellent.
So it's out on Amazon. It's been out for a couple of months, and you've got the podcast coming, which is incredibly exciting. I was looking at the Intern Institute last night, doing a little bit of research around this, and what drove you to create that? So, because I can see there's like a veteran focus in there.
That's right. Yeah. The veteran was certainly part of it. That was through a grant that we did. To answer your question, I mean, personally, through my first career, especially in marketing communication, I had 4 internships. I've managed at least 300 interns at this point in my career. I've run those programs. And then when I went out in 2002, still doing the marketing, I had my own, what was, a virtual program. I was, back then it was bricks and mortar companies, right, versus virtual. Now the pendulum has swung completely the other way. I was a little ahead of the curve on that. But when I sought to get into something else, I try to align, well, what is my experience and my skill set and what I have a passion around, and how does that align with what I view as a market need? Yeah. And I recognize in having my own programs that the colleges, at least here in the States, I can't speak as much to Europe and in your continent and elsewhere, how they compare. I certainly think Europe, at the very least, is better than how we do it, because it's embedded in the education system. But there are just so many gaps here. And particularly when it comes to the employer and them recognizing the value of it and how to do it right. There's a certain way to do it right. So that's what I did. I developed all that intellectual property as the, here you go, employer, to put these programs in place and optimize them. And then in going into the nonprofit, to which, to your point, the grants, this being around workforce development and economic development, crossover, and then military transition. So I've run a lot of grants over the years, and they've all, they're not just for college students. They are military transition, disadvantaged youth. It's been very rewarding, very difficult, but very rewarding.
So who's inspired you, Matt, in your journey, in your leadership journey? Who's some of that inspiration behind what it is that you do?
Well, I think from a reading standpoint, probably Malcolm Gladwell on one hand. His book Blink which is some years back now, had a great impact on me, because if you're not familiar with it, the brief aspect of it is that he sought to prove, and I think did, that people who trust their gut make at least, if not better, decisions than people who overanalyze things. And so that's, for someone who might get caught up in all that energy of overdoing it, that really was very grounding for me. I do subscribe to the law of attraction for another. So Rhonda Byrne would certainly, come into play. I mean, she's the extreme. There's the quantum physics over here, and then Rhonda Byrne, but just rooting in gratitude. Whether you want to call it by some natural principle or not, just as a human being, being grateful and experiencing that being in the moment and joy and life enrichment. That's what matters most.
Excellent. So with the concept of today's leader, we're talking to a lot of younger leaders, the entrepreneurial, the startup, and when I say younger, it could be just young in mind. What are some of the traits that you would see that great leaders in the past had, and how does that compare with what we believe, or what you believe are needed to be an effective leader for today?
That's a great question. I mean, the first thing I heard was being young in the mind. I'm like, I'm a perpetual 12-year-old. I could speak to anybody. I think that, it does springboard off of, and oddly enough, what we just talked about, where law of attraction and amplifying gratitude. And where I summarize that is around the notion of what we expect tends to happen. Yeah. So, that's why you don't worry, because you don't set expectations around things you don't want to happen. But when it comes to something that's effortful for an entrepreneur, like writing a book won't write itself, a company won't start itself. And if you look at law of attraction as something that is fueled by gratitude, what we're talking about here is around entrepreneurship and finding your why, and legacy achievement around something called inevitability. And that is fueled by self-belief. Yeah. So when typically an entrepreneur might look at something in a business planning way. So, well, here's my 3 month, my 6 month, my 1 year. Here's my 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. Right? You're always looking at I'm at point A, and where am I going? But when you're looking at it from this vantage point around inevitability and self-belief, you have to go all the way out to point B. What can you crystallize as being that vision that you have, that you can really, to a level of faith, have the self-belief to know you will achieve? What is that? And really be clear about it, and then work backwards. So if you think of it as a line of dominoes, and what's that straight line from the point B I see? And of course it keeps moving out as things unfold, but what can I see? So for the Internship Institute, I mean, that's a nonprofit for a reason, because a lot of it has to do with systemic change. It's not just, putting internships into place, and that's going to take decades. And it has less to do with wow, what is that domino I can see so clearly that many decades out? It's what's the domino that I have to get to tip? What is that tipping point, right? Another Malcolm Gladwell concept in order to get the rest to fall in the way that I envision them to. So if you can get so clear about that self-belief, that is really, back to your question, what is going to be that core, leadership fuel, because you're going to get knocked down.
Yeah.
Eight times a week. You're going to get punched in the gut 20. You'll go to your knee 1. You'll be flattened out 5. You always get back up because you have the self-belief and the grit to know that you're going to take your licks. I don't know if is that an expression you ever use.
Yeah.
You're going to whatever it is, you've probably got that. And you're going to you just press on.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, then bring your point B closer.
Yeah.
Until you do, and if you don't, then go in another direction.
Yeah, go work for someone else potentially. So yeah, I mean, so grit, perseverance, but that real clarity on, as you call it, that point B. I think that's really quite sound advice. And you talked about those troughs and being brought to your knees and getting punched in the gut. So how do you deal with that? So how do you deal with those inevitable troughs that happen in our careers or in our businesses?
Well, after crying uncontrollably for, a solid amount of time. No, I mean, look, I think, coping skills again come with experience, and, all of us have been through however much we have in our lives. And, without comparison, I've certainly had my share, and, it's not like you get numb to it. It's just I just am better at shrugging. Things just kind of rolling off my shoulders. It's just like, okay, some of it for me actually has to do with another thing that I speak to is called swimming with the current, and also goes back to what was mentioned about, the book Blink with Gladwell and trusting your gut. And that is that notion of, am I banging my head against the wall? That feeling of, what am I doing entrepreneurially? Like I'm a willful person and I'm applying my will, and yet, man, I just feel like I'm pushing that boulder up the hill. It's going to roll back on me. You have to stop and ask yourself, what does it mean to turn around? Trust your gut, because whatever you're doing isn't working. That's what it means to swim with the current. Find that flow, and you have to trust yourself to know when you experience that, to know to stop and really look around and not have those blinders on, so that you can prevent the kinds of things that you're asking me about from happening. But yeah, I just roll with it, Tony. I'm just really undeterrable.
So that leads me to my next question. So being undeterrable, and you've sort of talked about, I guess, your relationship with failure while you were working through that particular question. But all of this takes energy, doesn't it? You're coming across really clearly as a high energy individual. So how do you maintain that flow? How do you maintain that energy flow? And is there any tips and advice for the listeners?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I do speak a lot to energy management, and I've learned this a lot through the years, as well as you have to be very mindful of your own energy at any given time in the day. I mean, there's times when I can't write a cohesive sentence. Yeah. And, I know if I'm not at my, most mentally acute, it's time to go do laundry. That still has to get done. Go do the thing that, align your energy with the deeds of the day. If you find yourself feeling really good, I'm having a great morning, I'm energetic, look at your to-do list. What is the most difficult thing on your to-do list? Go do that right away, because it's going to be a lot easier, if you just manage it that way. So that's one thing. I mean, like I said, I speak to being a life athlete in the book, and, talk about things, that are very, typical around, the physical and mental health. It just really depends day to day. It's just really checking in with yourself. And I think gratitude is really a big part of it too. I set alerts on my phone four times a day to have a 1-minute check-in. every 4 hours. I think it's coming up now. Not during our interview. You won't hear anything, but I'm aware of it, and it forces me to really check in and say, well, how am I feeling? Am I really, because I really am someone, just knowing myself, I can get blinders on very easily when I get intensely focused. And it's just a moment to say, well, do I need to go take a walk? Do I need to take a minute to literally just stop everything and be grateful for something specific, and folding gratitude into your day in that way? I mean, look, it's only 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do that. But if my phone isn't my taskmaster, it won't happen. So that's the practical advice I have.
Going for that walk, getting out in the sunshine, doing something else often regenerates us as well. So I'd imagine that 1 minute check-in allows us to say, well, I am going to go for a quick stretch. And, it's winter here in Australia at the moment, and sometimes there's just nothing nicer than just finding a spot where there's some sun. So,
right.
And that sort of regenerates me. So that's really a really good tip. And
6 months from now, if you want, come shovel my driveway here. We get plenty of snow here in Philly.
That's all right. Get your winters.
Yeah, I'm ready to exercise. Let's let's go hoof it. No, you're right. I mean, look, I think everybody has their own coping skills, and certain music I listen to. I mean, it just is energy management, and I have worked for myself since 2002, and there's just a routine to it, and other people, whatever that is for them, and however they structure their days, then fold into whatever that is, what it will do to improve your awareness and knowing when to go take a walk.
Yeah.
So.
One of the ladies in my network, she uses the timer on the kitchen stove. So she'll be doing some structured work. She'll schedule it in. And then because it's out there in the kitchen, it forces her to actually get up. And it's like that check-in that you talk about. It forces her to go to turn it off. So that's the way that she sort of manages, that she doesn't just A, she's getting up and about, but B, that she's managing her own energy levels as she walks. Yeah.
You ever try doing like sprints? Like my wife does this. I mean, she's better than I am, but she'll set an egg timer for 15 minutes. And I'm doing this now. So for 15 minutes, that's all she gives herself. I mean, it's time management thing, but it's more like a time energy management. Like in 15 minutes, what can I accomplish? And doing those kinds of sprints, again, there's always so much to do all the time in life. It's just little tricks that you play on yourself ultimately, but they work, when they do.
I'll tell you a funny story just on that. I gave that similar advice to a national sales executive that I was coaching there at one stage. But I said 20 minutes. I said, what I want you to do is set yourself a timer and just go focus for 20 minutes and just get some of this stuff done. And so he did that. So when we caught up next time, I said, how'd you go with scheduling the time? He said, Tony, once I got to 10 minutes, my mind started going all over the place. I said, well, cool. Set your timer for 10 minutes and then stretch it by a minute each and every time. So he found what potentially was his breaking point, and then by stretching it a minute at a time, he was able to get to that 20 minutes in a relatively short time. So instead of being focused on I can't do 20 minutes, well, let's make it 10 and let's build from there. So
yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I think the main thing is, look, we're all creatures of habit.
Yeah,
and it's hard to break habits, no matter how simple any of these things sound. You have to. If you want to have a more enriching day and a better life, you can start anytime. Yeah. What is that? And if it's the 4 alerts a day, just to kind of start getting your awareness up, and you're like, all right, there's my phone going off again, whatever, it'll annoy you, but it matters. And then just roll with it. And then things become a little bit more second nature. Yeah. Honestly, I can't sit here and claim like I'm, the Zen master or anything about any of these kinds of things. But if you can just do some of it in a manageable way and fold things in, I will say, when my feet touch the floor in the morning, the first thought in my mind is I'm grateful.
Yeah. Okay.
That is that's never a fail.
Yeah. So what's the vision for you going forward, Matt?
Well, I've set this intention, and I wouldn't have said it if I didn't have the self-belief in it.
Yeah.
What does it mean to personally enrich the lives of 100 million, at least 100 million, by 2025? The podcast is a step in that direction. Again, it's also about getting me out of my, expanding my comfort zone. I'm in a discomfort zone, doing, standing in front of video, on my iPhone and trying to get myself to, pretend there's another person on that dot. That's not easy for me. So, continue to expand my comfort zone in ways like that I know will make an impact, and, hopefully, posting more of those kinds of things, and then ultimately trying to get into speaking. The Internship Institute, and, that is going to unfold its next chapter in its own way. That's like a swimming with the current thing. It got very strong.
Yeah.
Opposite strong in the last year and a half, which I couldn't have known, obviously, with COVID and writing the book, that it would have been a good time not to be doing these programs, because they aren't really running.
Yeah.
For the most part, without the companies aren't having people on site, if they're even on site themselves. So it kind of worked out, and the podcast was something that happened actually through a coincidence with a fellow Aussie of yours, a couple fellow Aussies.
Yeah.
So sometimes, as much as I try to live life by choice and design instead of chance, I do try and leave room for things to unfold in their own way, and that is one example in terms of it leading to the podcast. If you asked me 6-8 weeks ago, have you ever thought of that? The answer was no.
Yeah. And I guess part of that that intuition that you speak about too sometimes leads us down paths that we never had planned or never had structured. It's just a good feeling. We've got that inside us, and we take that leap of faith, I guess, in some respects. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So out of everything that you've accomplished, Matt, what are you most proud of?
Wow. I don't know that I've ever quite been asked that question. I'll just go to the thing that comes to mind. I mean, I'm going to skip, having a child and, all the average things. Yeah. I was captain of my college team, Temple. I mean, we weren't, Division I or however it might be by another name elsewhere in the world, but it felt that way. We went undefeated champions, and my friends, my high school buddies, people I still keep in touch with, that moment, right, when you're throwing your gloves and sticks and everyone's jumping all over each other. It's hard to top that.
Yeah.
And I was proud to be, a leader at that time, and to be able to have that life experience. I might answer that question, 8 other different ways, maybe some other time, but that's the one that comes to mind here.
Yeah, and the one that comes to mind is often the one that stands out, and that winning feeling as a team is just, those times that you've won as a team is just so, they're just so pivotal in life. It's, you can't describe that feeling. And then the next day you sort of think, oh, where do I go now? So
it really is. And have you ever heard that, I believe this, I don't know what the source of it is, but that people who are quote unquote successful, who've been studied, a vast majority of them either played an organized sport, served in the military, or practiced a martial art.
Okay. So discipline and service.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That they had that structure and whatever that grit is, whatever that is about, playing a sport and being on a team and things of that nature. I just found that very interesting. So that was the next thing that came to mind here.
Yeah. Forsaking self and forsaking ego for the team. Yeah. I mean, there's certainly something in that. That's quite insightful. So is there anything that I haven't asked you, Matt, that I should have? And this is your chance to jump on a soapbox and mention anything, share anything, do a sales pitch, whatever it is that you want to do. This is your opportunity.
Well, that's a very nice opportunity. I appreciate it. I mean, the only thing that I really, look, I mean, it was important to me to write the book, and I believe that just about anybody can gain at least something from it, if not a lot of things from it. And it's free to read on my website, and it's free to read the first part on Amazon. And then if you want to keep going, you will have read enough to know that you want to buy it. So it's just a call to action. Just go check it out. I mean, what more can I ask for there? My podcast, Insights to Live By, I'm thinking I'm just about sure it's launching July 21st, which would be
Okay.
that would be your 22nd.
Yeah.
Something close to it, right?
Yeah.
How is the future 14 hours from now? And I think that, again, for all the things that are covered, what I really do find is that that just being kind to yourself is really the barometer in any case. Don't hold on to regret. Don't stay angry at people for things years old, and don't worry. And it's just something I've learned over the years. It takes a lot of self-training to knock those habits out of your way, but you'll be a lot more energetic if you're not dragging yourself down with those kinds of things. So it just matters to me. I want people to come away with that, with some practical things here that I hope they find beneficial. So thank you to your listeners for wanting to spend this time with us.
Excellent. So how can people connect with you?
There's a website at Z or Z, same way you can go, -isms.com, Z-Isms.com, and check it out. There's some free resources there. There soon will be an insightstoliveby.com. It's not quite up yet. When are you airing this, Tony? When is this?
This will probably be around the launch of your podcast, actually.
Is that right? Okay,
Yeah.
so it might be there, within days. I just, we have a community, and I want to hear from people about their insights to live by. Everybody has them, so I'm just really curious to where that exploration is going to go.
Excellent. So we connected via LinkedIn as well. So, of course, if people are looking to connect with Matt, there's a multitude of ways. But make sure you watch out for Insights to Live By, the podcast coming soon. I'm really excited about that for you, Matt. So well done. So
thank you, Tony. Thank you so much for having me.
Join the group of people impacted by seriously simple stuff to get you unstuck. The first book by Tony Coach Curl. Available at Amazon, Tony's Simple Stuff provides the tool for people to master your life and aspirations. 20% of every book sold supports Carter's cause.
Well, that was another brilliant conversation. Now, it wasn't very easy flowing. It was a very natural conversation, one that I enjoyed immensely. Now, I love the purpose that Matt shared and his easygoing nature. Now, he's obviously driven. He's got a driven process of impacting as many people as possible, because that was clearly evident by the energy that he was providing during that particular conversation. Some of the advice that I took away, some of those key points, is advice on reaching out to point B, which we may see as our vision, and working backwards provided some real depth for leaders like you that really want to make a difference. Getting really clear on point B and the belief that this brings empowers you to reach out and obtain point B. And the other interesting content or concept that I found in relation to that is that if that doesn't bring you clarity, bring your point B closer and start the journey again. So that's really interesting, because sometimes we get a little bit overwhelmed at what we actually want to achieve, and sometimes we just start to believe that we can start a little bit closer. So I think that was an absolutely valid and worthwhile concept. Another one that I liked is swimming with the current. And so what does it mean for you to turn around? What does it mean for you to turn around after banging your head against the wall, same behaviors, same process, banging your head against the wall and not getting that breakthrough that you're looking for? So what does it mean for you to turn around? And once again, find the flow, and that helps you prevent the pain that banging your head against the wall can often bring. And then somewhat, it may seem a little bit contradictory to that, but Matt's also undeterrable, and I really like that word. So there's a real difference there between resilience and persistence, being undeterrable, and every now and again you've got to turn around, because if you find your actions and behaviors aren't working, something has to change, whether it's your actions, your behaviors, or we've got to turn around to refresh and refocus. So I think that when we do that, it makes it easier for us to find the flow, as Matt was talking about. So don't forget to check out Z-Isms, which is available at Z-Isms.com. And there's a dash in there after the Z, of course, or Z-Isms, whichever way you want to run with that. But I really do thank Matt for investing his time in sharing his insights from the listener audience of the Today's Leader podcast. In today's disruptive world, good leadership skills will always stand you in good stead. And if you are looking to build better leadership skills, consider our sponsors, Think and Grow Business and the Coach Call Academy. Think and Grow Business is the home of the Think and Grow Business Mastermind and the home of the Leadership Roundtable, where we focus on personal, professional and business growth. Check it out at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au, and don't forget to book in your free 30-minute discovery call. The Coach Call Academy has over 75 programs that will help you build a better you. Join for just $1 for the first month. The academy that equips you and enhances your mindset, your leadership, and your business. Check it out at thecoachcurlacademy.com. Don't forget, where you are standing stronger, braver, and wiser. And don't ever forget the golden rule. I think you know what that is. Just don't be an arsehole. I'll see you next week.